So today is our last lecture, and relax because it's going to be extremely short. Okay, so it's the last bit about the structure of our research project. So I know that all of you are super busy. They have explained about your midterm and all the projects that you have, and you've been busy, and on top of that, you came. So I'm super grateful you found the time. I would actually like you to scan this QR code or go to the Bitly. I left there a bunch of material, okay? All the lecture notes are there, the solution to the mini project, everything is there. And just keep it part of your bookmarks on your Google, because this may not be relevant to you now, but it might be relevant later. So maybe in 2 semesters when you're trying to write your dissertation, or in the next month when you're writing your thesis, you say, and Maria mentioned something. What was it? So maybe you can have it with you, okay? So all the lecture notes are there, all the exercises. Also, I have links to all the papers that I have mentioned. So there is a lot of material that you may use, okay? So with that, I move forward. You can download everything, you can get in touch with me, you can make a little comment, and I can respond to that. Okay? So, today, again, we're going to talk about academic research, and basically, we're going to talk about your dissertation. So, yesterday, we approached the topic of what sort of topic, what sort of title, how to write a literature review, how to get data, and how to get the topic. Topics are very, you need a little bit of creativity and art, okay? So you look at something and say, yes, I like this lecture about poverty, but what should I do about it? So the idea yesterday was to try to allow you to narrow your ideas. Imagine that you already have an idea and you have to write your thesis. Where do you start from? So this is an opportunity. You have spent, probably some of you, 6 semesters, 5 semesters, but by the time that you write your dissertation, you have spent about 4 years learning, and learning a lot of models that have been very creative, but the theories here. And how do you apply them? Okay, so the idea is now you have the chance to say something. So it's a great idea, okay, but it means you have to work independently, which I don't know if you know the word procrastination. Yeah, well, it's short for Netflix, okay? So whenever you start, say, yes, I'm going to start in a little bit. I just watch another episode or da, da, da. So time management. Time management is very important. So be very jealous, be very possessive about your thesis, because unfortunately it doesn't write down itself. Moreover, the fun part is the short part of the project. Okay? So first you start thinking about the topic, then you start thinking about where to get data. Once you get data, you need to think about the model. Once you have the model, that's fun. Okay? You run the results and they work. And then it comes boring again, you have to write them. And writing is difficult. You can spend hours writing a paragraph. So this is the first opportunity for you to do your own academic research in economics, but very important to have time management skills for this process. So, the elements, I'm going to concentrate today on empirical research. So yesterday we said you could do theory or you can do some applied work. If you're going to discover a new model, you spend more time not in the fun part, but thinking, okay? And, but most of the time you're going to do an application. So this empirical research requires data, testing, analyzing, tables, charts, statistical summaries, and so on. But it also needs to include your literature review. And your literature review, as we said yesterday, is not a summary of all the papers that exist. It's all the relevant papers, okay? Relevant. So that's very important that you are able to discriminate what's relevant for you. If your topic is something that nobody has done, you will have to read all the papers in the matter. There will be about 10. Excellent. But if you're doing something that all of us have done, anything on macro, anything on growth, anything on labor, how many papers there are? Thousands, correct? So you have to discriminate and make your literature review information seeking. So try to find out what is being said in the literature. If there is any debate, these authors say that you should do an OLS, and this other author said you use panel data. So you need to find out the areas of agreement and disagreement and what you are contributing to the literature. Yes? What is the new idea? What are you saying? So it should contain this. Now, I'm going to take you by the hand with your thesis. So imagine that you have, this is the typical structure, okay? You have an introduction, correct? You have a literature review. Then you have your methods and data. So on the data, you more or less describe what data you're using. Then you said what method you are using. Then you have the results. Then you have your discussion and the conclusions. So that sounds like more or less the structure of any thesis, correct? Okay. So I am going to ask you to help me with this. So we have all these elements of a normal thesis, and I would like you to help me rank them in order of importance. So can you rank what is the most important? Is it the data, the research methods, the conclusion, the literature review? What do you think is the most important part of it? Excellent. Okay. One more, one more. There's more than 9 students. Come on. No one else? No? That's it? Well, you were correct to start with. Then you move toward the dark side, let's say. So, okay, so data is important. Data is important because without data on an empirical world, you're nobody. But that's not the most important section of it. As a matter of fact, it is the empirical evidence and the results. And that's the fun part when you're doing something applied, okay? That's going to be the main body of your thesis, okay? That's what you're going to write about. What did you do and what did you find out? Research methods, also very important. The literature review is important and must exist. But you were right in thinking at the beginning that the introduction is mega important. If you're reading a paper I'm sure that you have read hundreds of them. But when you're reading, if the introduction is bad, as a reader, you are lost. Like, oh my God, what is this going to go to the building? And you start turning pages and like, what is the model? What's happening? You know, so the introduction is fundamental so that you don't lose your readers. I'm going to give you a little hint. It's also very important for the people who grade your thesis. Because if you lose your lecturers and they are reading and they have other things to do, they are reading and they say, oh no, 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 no. So you put them in the bad mode. So spend a lot of time in your introduction, okay? So introduction, super important. The conclusions are important, but yes, once you give an anticipation of the conclusions in the introduction. So you are correct. It's not the most important. I would probably put empirical evidence, then research methods, then introduction, then literature review, then data, then conclusions. Okay? How do we approach? So we have these sections. How do you approach them? Well, we're going to approach them in a completely different way. When you start writing your dissertation, the first thing that, or your thesis, the first thing that you say is, I'm going to write the introduction. Mistake, massive mistake. You cannot write the introduction without writing first what you've done. The introduction comes last. Because it's exactly when you know you have done all the work. Then it's easier for you. Okay? It's weird because all of you, including me, I have started writing a paper and said, I'm going to start with introduction. That should be easy. First of all, if you haven't done the job, it's really hard. And second, it creates just a mental mess. Then you start watching Netflix. Then you don't go and do this. You know, so try to leave the introduction and the conclusions to the very end. Where do you need to start? You need to start first, like yesterday, narrowing your topic. Once you have the topic, you look for data. Once these two things happen, you start working. What do you go first? Literature review. That's the most important. That's going to give you a hint. First of all, it's going to give you a hint about the methods. As you read around, you will find, oh, these people did this panel data, or they've done it in a developing country, or in a developed. What are the literature review is fundamental for you. It's going to help you a lot. It's also going to help you to find data because most of these papers will have a section of, we use data from the World Bank, from the UN, from the mixed survey, whatever survey you're using, okay? So it's going to be useful to find the data, okay? So literature review is the first thing that you do. The next thing that you're going to do, once you've done that, is decide on what methods you are going to choose based on your data. And notice that the data goes hand in hand with everything, okay? Maybe that's why you thought it was so important, and maybe you're right. Data goes hand in hand with this. So if you want to run, if you say, yes, the literature review said that I should do panel data. Yes, I'm going to do panel data. Excellent. But the data is cross-sectional. Problem, okay? So try to these together. Choose the method, and the method is very important because here is where you can be creative, okay? So if this model includes 5 variables and you think that there is a missing variable, that is an extra variable that you think is relevant, that's your creativity. If everybody has used cross-sectional and you decided to do time series, that's your creativity. The method is going to be really important for you when you write your dissertation. So I would take it in this way. Once you have your methods and data and the next section would be the results. In order to write the results, you need to run all the model that you're going to run. And your favorite statistical software, it can be R, it can be data, it can be eViews, consumer's choice, whatever you pick. Once you have the results, you're going to write your conclusions and your introduction. So I'm going to tell you more or less what elements should be on each of these sections, okay? Now, I'm giving you a rough idea of the percentage of the word count, okay? Because you as students are always concerned with how many words? How many words? And I tell my students, we don't mark by kilogram, we mark by content, okay? But, so if you just follow more or less this percentage, that may be helpful. So for the introduction and motivation, 12%, for the literature, 18%, data description, 10%, research methods, 18%, econometric evidence and empirical findings, 30%. That's the body, okay? That's the big part. Your conclusions, 12%. So introduction and conclusions are more or less the same. Yeah, small data, quite small. The title of your dissertation must reflect the content. Be as concise and clear as possible. You can go for entertaining titles, okay? To be catchy. Star Wars, the Empiric Strike Back, and our key, the law of economics and private organization. I love that one. I think it's the best. So, background information, okay, of existing literature. This section of the literature review should be 18%. First of all, you should give a summary of the reading research you have done into your topic area. Describe the existing and established theory and empirical work in your proposed area and provide a context for your work. Yesterday, we spent some time talking about Google Scholar and how it could help you to find more literature. These existing literature review should have two sections. The first section should discuss all the previous research, okay? You need to review, not only be up to date, okay? So you need to include the most up to date papers, the most up to date, okay? So even the one that they published the morning that you're submitting your thesis, you should include it. And you should employ all the things that you have learned about literature review, mostly books and peer-reviewed journal articles. That is like a summary of everything that you have read, but that's not enough. The second part or the second section should try to explain your contribution. Where in the literature your paper fits? Is it just another application? Is it novel in the model? Is it includes a different time period? Where are you placing your contribution? More precisely, how your approach is different or equal to anything that has been done before. Is it a new model? Is it new data? New identification strategy? Are you answering a question more broadly? Are you including more variables? So here you have to place everything, okay? So summary of everything that has happened, find the areas of debate or similarities in the literature, and third, find where you place your thesis. So, the question, a literature review should just summarize the papers relevant to your research. True or false? I'm going to stop you before you get it really wrong. It's not true. Not true. Okay? So not only a summary of everything, it should include where is your contribution, and also the similarities and debate in the literature. Okay? So more than that. So whoever said false, wake up. Okay. Now we go into the data description. The data description should be relatively easy, okay? You should just say where your data comes from, the source of your data, the period that you're using. The first thing that you're going to say is it a panel, cross-section, or time series? What's your unit of observation? How many observations do you have? That's standard. Now you have to also discuss the limitations of your data. If there are so many missing values or missing observations, survey response, small number of observations, you have to realize how limited is your database. If your database is wow, well then wow, you can say, I am fortunate enough not to have many missing values. That's nice, okay? You may also want to highlight these limitations because it's going to avoid you having to explain these later on. So when you are doing the results, you're going to say, well, my results are fantastic with these 10 observations that I have. But it's not significant, the model, okay? So this will cover you. So if you discuss it here, it's good. And why? Sometimes we work with data that is available and not the data that we want because there is no data. So try to describe your ideal data set in this section. If I could, I would have such and such variable. If I could, I would have more observations. What would be your, this is a way of finding the limitation of your data set. So if you start imagining now, what is your topic, what's your data set, you can start thinking about the limitation. The second section should present descriptive statistics, okay? Always do not think it's a bad idea or if it's too simple. It's really useful to have descriptive statistics, histograms, graphs. You may not include all these in your final thesis, but it's going to be really good for you. You will know the magnitude of all the variables. So this is useful. At least have one table and one graph of your, at least of your main variables. Okay, so this is important, but it's relatively short. Okay, it's a very short section, only 10% of your word count. Now, we're going for the research methods. The research methods, more important, 18% of your word count. So here you're going to tell us how are you going to carry on your research or your research hypothesis. You're going to tell us the following statements. What is your research methodology? What are you using? Are you using one equation, two equations, five equations? Are you solving a system of equations? What are you doing? Okay, and this is a big part. Okay, explain why is the most appropriate methodology to answer your research question or your hypothesis. And here you can go back and saying, well, in the introduction, in the literature review, I told you this and that's why this is important. So now you are linking your thesis, okay? So you have different links. Specify the econometric method you have used and say, why do you think this is suitable? Okay. And here I'm going to have an interlude. What word processor, what text processor do you use? Do you use Word? Word? hate Word. Yeah, because Word is, to write an equation, it can take you 5 hours, no? And it looks really horrendous. So I'm going to recommend you a package that is free. And it takes a little bit of time to learn because you have to learn to program. I think some of your lecturers know it. So yes. LaTeX. Okay? Yes. To write equations is just marvelous. Marvelous. It does require a little bit of practice, but your thesis is going to look like a paper published in American Economic Review. First of all, looks amazing. Second, it really is useful for writing equations. Otherwise, you suffer. Is that correct? Yes, lecturer, yes. So from LaTeX, if you Google LaTeX, you will see that it's free. There are several ways of using it. So some people use overlay, which is also part of LaTeX, okay? I use something that is called TechMaker, MakeTech, all sorts of things. But it's a free program, and it will make your life a lot easier. It compiles it into the PDF, and if they have to pay me for this, I'll be very happy. But I think it's really good for the section, okay? So write your econometric specification and explain each of the variables and the parameters of interest, okay? So in the data set, you have told us the variables that you're using, okay? In this section, you're going to tell us the parameters. And what do I mean by the parameters? I want to know what is the expectation of this eta hat. So here, you're going to tell me, well, I would expect that with a reduction of poverty, there is going to be more economic growth. So I would expect this beta parameter to be positive, okay? I would expect such and such. So describe your expectation. Unfortunately for you, this may not happen, okay? But explain. What is the correct specification for the question you wish to address? Was it derived from theory or from previous empirical work? So is the model that you are using something that you borrowed from another paper that you mentioned on the literature review? Or you came out with a new model? It comes from your theory. It sometimes happens, It's not so. Discuss the basics, OLS, instrumental variables, why is this appropriate? Be very specific about the identification and what assumptions you need to make in order to interpret a parameter, as you wish to interpret a parameter. This happens a lot with log linear models or semi-log linear models that you are using logs. So the parameter is not just telling you the effect, but it's telling you like the elasticity or something else. So careful with how you interpret the parameters. After discussing what is the model and what are you doing, then you're going to tell us what tests you're going to use. Any test. So say if you're doing panel data, you might decide to tell us you're going to use the Hausman test to decide between fixed effects and random effects. Or you are testing for heteroscedasticity, multicollinearity specification, whatever you might be doing. So now, as you think about your thesis, yesterday you told me a little bit about your topic. Imagine what it is. Is it an OLS? Is it a panel data? Is it time series or other econometric technique? I know that you don't know just yet. I know. But when you know, in the next year or two, you might decide to use this. Okay, that's good. So you already know a little bit about how your data would be. That's something that you should know, okay, when you start thinking about your research. Now, the big chunk, this econometric evidence and empirical findings, this 30%. This should show you how your results support your hypothesis or research question. So some basic things that will guide you: present your results in a way that develops your arguments step by step. You may want to present your main results first and then say, in order to achieve this, I had to run an auxiliary regression on that, and so on, okay? The results must be complete. So you have tables with parameters, which is the dependent variable, which control variables are including, what are the specifications of your testing. Discuss here the most interesting and important estimates in your discussion table. Make sure you report standard errors, R-squares, adjusted R-squares, sample sizes, if the model is significant, okay? So try to summarize it. Sometimes, believe it or not, you're going to run a huge amount of regressions, of which the main one is just the one, okay? Just walk through this section by describing what you have done, but don't overwhelm the reader with hundreds of results because you are going to confuse them. Make sure you have an appendix, statistical appendix with everything else. Do mention it in the text to say what you have done and that is supported. But in this section, just the main results. And it's going to take you a lot of words here. This is your time to be creative, okay? And I think this is the most fun of your dissertation. Now, you also need to include here the interpretation of your betas, okay, of your parameters. This is very important. Make sure that you give all the parameters a small test, okay? So not only is about generating the results, have you worked with data or reviews and gives you a lot of results and say, fabulous. But you don't know if the magnitude is correct. Maybe, yes, there is a positive effect that is significant, but it's 0.0000000000009. So it's a bit small, okay? So try to check and think about it when you are reading. What is this telling me? As I increase age, my wages increase. Is that correct? That makes sense? Yes, that's an answer equation. That makes sense. Make sure that you use graphs. Graphs are worth 1,000 words. So you will have a lot of results. Use graphs because they're gonna help you, okay? And which kind of graph? The one that is more telling, okay? It could be a pie chart, it could be a histogram, it really depends on what you're doing. Discuss whether the parameters estimates are significant or not. Now in this section, realize that if your variable is not significant, you have done all this work. You found your topic, you found your data, you did your literature review, you did everything that was possible. You run the results and the beta parameter is not significant. And you feel you want to kill yourself. Well, don't, okay? Do not despair. It is okay to say it's not statistically significant. You don't need to torture the data to make it significant. It's okay that it has an opposite sign. So check that all your programming is correct, but if it gives you a sign that is contrary to theory, try to understand why, but mention it, acknowledge it. Truth is the best. Honesty is the best strategy. Okay, say, well, just didn't happen. Compare your results with the literature, with what other people have said. Okay, and say, well, yes, actually, yes, it works in the very same way, or it's better, or I would do something different. Be confident about your conclusions, okay? The problems you encounter should not be dismissed or hidden. You should try to address them. So if you find multicollinearity and you have tried to fix multicollinearity and nothing fixes multicollinearity with this data, declare it, say it. It's not a sin, okay? Statistical data works in this way, and sometimes knowing is not significant is a good thing. We know that relationship is not holding for one reason or another. Then we will go into the conclusions. The conclusions are only 12%. It's kind of a summary of the discussion of your results. They should have 3 parts at minimum. So have a summary of your findings and the resulting conclusions. Have a section on the recommendations, contributions to knowledge. Here, do not include any new results. So say that you've been doing some cost-benefit analysis. Here is when you're going to say, well, actually, I would recommend for this school to be built in this area, or I wouldn't, you know? So conclude, make your contribution be very clear. You may also consider a section on self-reflection. After you finish your thesis, what are the limitations of your study? What would you have done differently? Oh, I would have included other 3 countries. That would have been good. I would do country comparison maybe. So try to have all these sections that might be useful. And finally, start writing your introduction. Your introduction should start with a friendly paragraph. And yesterday we were talking about your topics, and we said that we were going to talk with your grandparents, yes, about your research topic. For those of you who are not here, I told you that it's important to talk to them because as much as they love you, they're going to tell you the truth, and they're going to say, I don't understand. So the first paragraph should be read by your grandparents. So ask them, okay? Make it really simple, really interesting. If your family or grandparents think, oh, well, that sounds interesting, your first paragraph is correct. But we're not going to dumb it up, okay? We're going to make it an academic thesis. So from that paragraph onwards, try to make it really formal about the things that you're doing. So explain what's the main purpose of your dissertation. A little background of the central issues of your research. So here, it comes a little bit of the literature review, okay? A little bit, not the same words, it's not a copy-paste, okay? Just a little bit. Set out the underlying reasons for undertaking this specific research. Why is it important to talk about gender pay gap? Why is it important? Some of you yesterday were about adolescent smoking. So why is it important? Try to talk about these specific methods, okay? So why is it important? And you may include your personal motivation, okay? You might add your personal motivation. The primary focus of the dissertation usually is expressed in terms of your research hypothesis and your research question. These are all the areas that you're going to cover on your dissertation, okay? This introduction should include a lot, okay? But it's only 20%, but you need to really think about it. This is one of the important parts of your dissertation. The question you're trying to address, why should we care about this question? This is not the place to do the literature review, okay? But you can mention there is a debate in the literature and usually describe this bit. What is your contribution? How are you answering the question? So it's a summary of your methods, right? So you should have done all the rest to be able to do this part. What are your main results? Briefly, okay? But give the reader just a taste, not the whole thing, just a taste. I find there is a relationship between economic growth and education, together with both. That's it. Don't tell them the values of the parameters, okay? Just a taste, just a little bit. So, how is your work different from others? What are the implications? Here also part of your conclusions, okay? What's the big contributions that you make? Then your references. And the appendix, where you're going to put all these other bits of information. Some people also use the appendix for putting data. Don't. It's for what is data telling you? You know, tables and tables and tables of data. You want to add some about the data, you can describe more here and add more descriptive statistics, more graphs. If you just print out the data, it's a waste of paper, and it tells me not very much. But the descriptives may help me here, okay? We're done. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Roy. I want to ask you about research. Okay, often when I done a research, I already find a review literature review and already found a genuine research gap. But after that, after I finally run my data and make a result, I find another paper that have not the similar, but have a general idea the same as my paper. Uh, in your opinion, what do you think the best way to handle that situation? If I should continue or should I just uh, make another topic? Thank you.
Continue. Absolutely continue. This is difficult. Okay? I'm gonna tell you, you're not the only one that is heartbroken. And it happens because literature moves in the same direction. So the same time that you read everything and you thought, there's a gap, like another 100 people thought the same. You are lucky to be the second and not the 100, okay? So don't view it as like, no. Actually, it's encouraging. It means that you're thinking in the right way, that you read the right papers, that it's going in this way. And definitely the way that you apply it is going to be different, okay? And actually mention this in the motivation. And instead of saying this is like something that broke my heart, make it as something important, you know. As I was following the literature, this paper came along, and this paper confirmed that this is a gap. Okay? And as soon as you finish, send it to publish. So you're the fifth or something, not the 100. So yes, no, it happens a lot. A lot. So just relax. But it's a good thing. Many of your classmates are thinking, oh, that didn't happen to me. Well, it means that you were closer to novel literature than the rest. So well done. It's a good thing. Really good. Okay? More questions? Yeah? No? Okay, Tamakase. I had a great time. So you got rid of me from now. So I had a great time at OGM. I'm very impressed by the level of the students and the staff, and been a great visit for me. I'm hoping to, while I was teaching, I was also trying to write a paper. So if it happens, which I think it will, you will see some of your lecturers that have helped me in the title. So we're going to do a joint paper. And thank you to you because you motivated me to do it. So thank you very much. And I hope I will see you sometime soon. And if you need anything from your, contact me. I'll be very happy to help. Okay? Bye-bye.